Welcome to the Putback here on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY's NBA insider. We got a great show here talking Knicks, breaking everything down over the next 30, 45 minutes. Got a great guest here, Mill Media. You've seen her on social media. She's got great opinions, informed opinions, strong opinions. And we also have Juwan Staten, Miles McBride's skills coach, New York-based skills coach with several clients. He's worked for a long time with McBride. We get into Karl-Anthony Towns. We get into Mike Brown. We get into the trade deadline. We hit it all, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Welcome to the Putback here on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY's NBA insider. We're going to talk Knicks for the next half hour or so. I got a great guest with me today, Mill Media. Opinionated on the Knicks, strong opinions, informed opinions, a young member of the local media too. So always love to have her take on what's going on with the Knicks at the moment. We will also have an interview with, Juwan Staten, skills trainer, works with several clients, including Miles McBride. We get into McBride's success this season, some of the details on what they have worked on. And we're going to start here, though, as we always do, with the baseline. Now the Knicks are out on the West Coast coming off of a win in Portland. Josh Hart returning to the starting lineup. Knicks improving their record with Hart in the starting lineup to 12-3. I'm not counting that Christmas Day game because he left that game before their comeback, but 12-3. When he's starting, and they were 3-5 when he was out, including having lost 5 of 6. So maybe it's too reductive to say that Josh Hart cures everything that ails the Knicks. I think that is the case, but his impact is undeniable. Mill, did you think that the Knicks were making a mistake? Mike Brown was making a mistake earlier in the season by bringing Hart off the bench?
Yeah, Hart was going through a rough stretch there. His shooting was definitely not what we're used to. His percentages were down, and it looked like he was in a rut himself. I understand that decision, putting him on the bench at the time. He was experimenting. This is Mike Brown's first season as our head coach. He admitted himself he has to experiment with different lineups. And, it turns out that that wasn't the right decision, but I'm sure he can admit that as well, that we need Hart in the starting lineup. You said it just now, 12-3 in the starting lineup. Numbers don't lie. That's just a great statistic right there that goes to show Josh Hart's impact is surreal when he's in the starting lineup, and it impacts winning. I definitely am so glad that his shooting percentages are up now, and he's shooting a lot better than he did when he started the season, but his impact goes beyond shooting. It's between all of the little things he does, rebounding, passing the ball, keeping it moving ahead coast to coast. He does everything. He could bring up the ball, he can grab boards, he can shoot now. And I memean, his impact is just incredible. And, there's not necessarily a hustle column you'll see in the statistics or the box score, but that's why this 12-3 record is so important to point out, because, he is a winning player, and it's proven that when he's in the starting lineup, we win games. So that stretch without him was really rough on the Knicks. They needed him bad. He's the glue of this team. He holds them together. He's the heart of this team as well. So without him, they were struggling.
Yeah, and Mikal Bridges said that he's probably the fastest, certainly one of the fastest Knicks with the ball in his hand. Mill, so you mentioned, getting a rebound, pushing up the floor. That's what he's been so good at since coming to New York, and I'm sure earlier in his career too, but he's really impacted the Knicks in many different ways, particularly that way. And when somebody re-enters the rotation, someone else leaves the rotation. A lot of questions about how this will impact people's minutes at the end of the rotation. Tyler Kolek, do his minutes get impacted? What is his role moving forward if Josh Hart's back? And then looking ahead, Landry Shamet coming back. I think that if I'm guessing that Kolek would be the player most impacted by the return of Josh Hart and later on Landry Shamet once he comes back. It's hard to see a regular role for Kolek with those two guys healthy. Mike Brown obviously open to trying many different things, open to experimenting in the regular season. So maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe he sticks with Kolek and there are other configurations. But Mill, for you, Josh Hart's back. Let's say Landry Shamet's back. How do you approach that rotation if you're making those decisions?
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting to see how Mike Brown plays this out. We have a lot of good guards on this team, and Kolek might not get as many minutes as he did just because, Hart is going to get that start. And when we have McBride coming off the bench, he's deserved those minutes off the bench. He's our sixth man. He's not going to just be put to the side so Kolek can come in. Deuce is our guy, and I expect him to, take back his role that he had on the bench before he was out. Kolek, on the other hand, it's going to be hard to find him minutes. As you said, there's so many guards on this team. I would love to have him still involved one way or another. I know it's going to be hard, but Kolek has shown such great potential in these past few months between the NBA Cup tournament game, Christmas Day. It's been so fun watching him play and the impact that he's had. I mean, I'm sure not a lot of us thought he could do this. We hadn't seen this from him last season because he wasn't really given that opportunity. So to see this from him this season, it's been delightful. And I absolutely love that we have some young guys that can perform like that because, while you're contending for a championship, you also want to be building the youth and to be building those young guys up. And I think he plays really well. He's a great pass first point guard. His passing ability, his vision is undeniably it's ahead of its time. And a lot of people say he's a defensive liability, but I do think that he brings something to the defensive lineups as well. And we've seen that with our own eyes in lineups where he's able to hustle out there and make an impact. I think he's a little bit of a menace out there. I'm not gonna lie. I'm seeing some moments from him where he is showing that he has that grit and he has that heart as well. It'll be a shame if he, gets put on the bench and we won't see much from him from now on, but I'm hoping that's not the case. It's going to be hard to fit all these guys in, but Kolek has shown us what he can do, and I'm hoping we can see some more of that some way.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The decisions ahead for Mike Brown. One interesting decision he made in that Portland game was benching Karl-Anthony Towns for the last 9 minutes of the fourth quarter, a game they win. But obviously, that's a big decision to make when you're sitting the number two option on the team and a guy who you rely on a lot offensively. Knicks winning the game there. Obviously, things going well and going and making Brown's decision look wise. If it goes the other way, I'm sure we're all second guessing Mike Brown today and yesterday until they get to this next game here on the trip. But it's a decision to me that shows that Mike Brown, regardless of your stature, he's going to go with feel down the stretch of games. We've seen him go away from Mikal Bridges. We
Yes.
obviously saw him go away from Towns, and we've seen him kind of mix and match late in games based on how the game is going. And so it's just interesting to see Towns. I don't think he said anything significant about it after the game. But how would you, when you look at a move like that, Mill, how do you assess that? What do you think? What does it make you think about the coach and Karl Towns?
Yeah, I mean, you said it that Mike Brown seems like the type of coach to go off of what's going right and how it's feeling out there. And I respect that. I think that that's the right decision there. We've seen him go away from Bridges, as you said. He had Kolek in the game over Bridges, and that was the right decision. Ultimately, I'm not mad that Towns wasn't out there because we still close out the game. We finished strong. I'm not sure how Karl-Anthony Towns is feeling. He's the second option on this team. I'm sure he wants to be out there. He wants to impact the game, but it's tough. Right now, he's still adjusting to his new role in Mike Brown's system. We've clearly seen him have up and down so far. We've seen him have games where he's taking only a few field goals. He's not shooting much. And ultimately, I want to see more from Towns. And I'm just curious how he's going to get there. I think it really involves the refs here. And I talked about this a little bit on Twitter that I think that when Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't get the whistle he wants, he looks lost out there and he doesn't know how to have an offensive role because his game is very, very physical. So if he's not getting those calls on those drives to the basket, he's not really having an offensive role. He's a three-point shooter. We know that. He claims to be one of the best three-point big men, but he's shooting the worst three-point percentage since his rookie season. So without the three-point shot there, he's going to need to find other ways to involve himself in this offensive system. And, games where he's getting that whistle, where he's going to the free throw line 8 to 10 times, he's able to do that. But when he's not getting the whistle at all, he doesn't look like he's there. He doesn't impact the game, and we need him to still find ways to do that. Or else it looks like he just, might be lost in this offensive system, which I don't want to happen. He's our second option. I want him to be involved just as much as Brunson. He's a very talented player. We've seen him dominate some games, and we can see what he does. He has a great ability to score the ball, but recently, some nights he looks like he's not even out there, so it definitely is an issue. And he still needs to find what works for him. But I do think that the whistle plays a big part of that.
Yeah, Karl Towns, a couple of times in press conferences, he's been asked about his role in the offense, and he's given answers that could lead you to think that he's not happy or he's still kind of searching, finding his way. And I think that's what you see on the floor. I'm not suggesting he's not happy, but it's clear that he's had a lot of adjustment to make here in Mike Brown's offense. And it brings me to a question that we got from the Raskins. And the Raskins is asking, are there issues in the locker room impacting the team chemistry on the court? It comes across that way. Last year, this is something I referenced a lot, where I think that there was some of the players, there was a me above we for much of the regular season. I thought it had gone away in the postseason, and everybody seemed to be kind of sacrificing for the greater good. But just based on what I was hearing last regular season, it seemed like there were some locker room issues there. I haven't heard of any this year. Not to say that means that there are none, but there's none that I've heard of. You've seen Towns, and you've seen him kind of searching for his role in the offense. But there's always going to be somebody who feels like they should get the ball more, somebody who feels like they're not getting enough shots in an NBA locker room. You can always find a player who's unhappy with his role. But as far as anything that's, beyond that, beyond just the normal day-to-day NBA life, I haven't heard of anything there. And I guess, you keep your eye on Towns, and you see how he adjusts in this offense. You see what his performance looks like. But I do think he's missing open three-pointers, the open looks at a very high rate, the misses. And so I would think that goes the other way at some point, but something to keep an eye on. And I think a good question from the Raskins about the locker room stuff. I haven't heard it this year, heard it a little bit last year. Jalen Brunson Mill moving up to 20th in the Knicks top 20 scores of all time. And I'm sure he's going to continue to climb that list. How do you assess what you've seen from Brunson lately?
Yeah, Brunson, I mean, he's our captain. He's the man of the city. He's always been incredible since he's become a Knick. One of the best guards in the East, if not the best, I would say, averaging 29 points per game, 6 assists per game. He's always elevating himself to another level every season. And I'm still impressed as a Knicks fan to see that, to see him get better, to see him elevate himself in ways that we didn't even know he could do it yet. And I do love that he shared the ball against the Blazers, as we can see on the screen. 8 assists. That's one thing I think that during that losing streak we didn't see enough of. There was one game where he had 0 assists, which was really surprising to me. I believe someone pointed out it was the first game as a Knick he had 0 assists, which was, yeah, again, surprising. And I think that that's one aspect of his game. A lot of us Knicks fans want to see him balance along with the scoring is we want him to share the ball equally as well because we don't want our offense just to be Jalen Brunson hero ball. As much as we love Jalen Brunson, he can't be carrying us every single night. That's why we have so many other talented players on this team between Towns and OG and Bridges. We want them to carry the load as well. And, Brunson is going to be Brunson. He's going to clutch up in those moments, but we want him to have the option to share the ball and to move it around, to trust his teammates as well. So I love the fact that he had 8 assists the other night, and that led to a win right there.
We did lose Mill, who was in the middle of making a great point about Jalen Brunson. Hopefully, we can get Mill back, and I'm sure she'll come back to join us. But I'm just going to hit a quick injury update with Landry Shamet being the Knick rotation player. In addition to Gerson Yabusele, who's been out, Shamet been making progress, and I believe that he is in a place where let's say it's a life or death game 7. I think that he could probably play, but I think the Knicks are going to be cautious here with the Shamet injury. I do think just based on the timeline that he should be back very soon, but I think the Knicks are taking a cautious approach there, and it's when he does come back. Obviously, Mike Brown has decisions to make, but in terms of his physical state and where the injury is, I've heard nothing but good things about Shamet and the shoulder injury. Mill, thank you for jumping back with us. And you were in the middle of a great point about Brunson. We just hit on Shamet, and now I want to go a little bit around the league, trade stuff, because it's getting to be that time of year. We're getting closer to that February trade deadline. And, the Trae Young deal, Atlanta going to Washington. Atlanta not getting a ton back. Corey Kispert, very nice player. But if you talked 2 years ago or a year ago about Trae Young and what his return would be, it would have been more than CJ McCollum, Corey Kispert. And now with Ja Morant, I'm sure the Grizzlies in a perfect world get a big return for Ja Morant, but with Trae Young setting the market, I just don't see them getting, if they're going to set the bar at a high level for what they would accept back for Ja Morant, they're not going to get that offer. Because the cat's out of the bag with Trae Young, with Miami. I just wonder a deal package like Davion Mitchell and Andrew Wiggins, those two for Ja Morant, does that entice either side? I think that there's maybe, I don't want to say mutual interest, but Miami's always mentioned as a place for Morant. But it's going to be an interesting dance for the Grizzlies in their front office, just because the value on Trae Young wasn't what it was a year ago in terms of trading for him. And Mill, I saw Draymond Green on his show talk about the Knicks being a sleeper for Ja Morant. I haven't heard that. I don't think it'll bear. I don't think it'll come to fruition. I don't know what Draymond has heard, but Ja Morant to the Knicks. I need your take.
Yeah, I saw that tweet as well. I don't honestly think that was real intel. I think it was more like a remark or an opinion that he could be here and it could make a big impact. As he said, it would sell tickets, but I don't think we're concerned about selling tickets. We're not really concerned about having the next big star to be in the bright lights for that sake. We care about winning. Okay, we care about winning a championship. That's on our minds right now. I don't think Ja Morant to New York is a good idea. We're set with who we have right now as our point guard, Jalen Brunson, and our core right now. I just don't see it. I really don't. It's not a possibility to me. I don't think it was um, a real report there. I think he just suggested that as the Knicks were a sleeper team. But I mean, you're the reporter. You know more than any of us, and you haven't heard anything. So yeah, I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah, that would shock me. That would shock me if that came to fruition. But there's other trade deadline stuff with the Knicks. We've got a question from Knicks chat 112. Are the Knicks still showing interest in Jose Alvarado? Any connection between Yabusele missing the last few games and reports that the Knicks are looking to move off of his deal? Thank you for the question. Thank you for the kind words. yeah, the Yabusele stuff is there, right? It seems like this is headed towards the Knicks finding a trade partner on Yabusele and sending him somewhere where he's got a chance to play because his minutes just haven't come consistently here under Mike Brown, and this was the Knicks, top free agent signing, and it hasn't worked out for either side. So I still think we're on that path to a Yabusele trade. Where, when, I don't know. But Jose Alvarado, yeah, the interest is there. It's going to continue to be there until the Knicks either make a move that rules out Alvarado or New Orleans deals him somewhere else. I think he's going to be on their radar up until that trade deadline, unless there's another move out there. We talk about John Morant. I mean, the only star I think the Knicks would even be in a conversation for would be Giannis, and Giannis continues to say that he's not going to ask for a trade. So I don't think there's going to be, or there is any movement there at the moment. Um, Oftentimes, things said publicly don't match up with what's happening privately, but within Giannis's case, I can't see him actually asking for a trade. I think it would be something where the Bucks move without that trade request, and then they figure it out that way. But yeah, Alvarado still there for the Knicks. Yabusele, I still think that eventually he will be moved. There's obviously so many rumors at this time of year. James Dolan was on the radio, WFAN, the Craig Carton show, saying he didn't think any big trades were coming, or any trades at all. He said he likes the roster. The Knicks like the roster the way it is. But that being said, I think the Yabusele move is still out there. And if there's a way for them to work out Jose Alvarado, depending on what New Orleans does or asks or doesn't ask for, I would think that there's a decent chance that something gets done there. But the teams around the league, everybody's just making calls right now, so you're going to see a ton of reports about player X being brought up in conversations with Team Y, and maybe 3% of the reports come to fruition, but it's that fun time of year where we get to hear about what teams are thinking, teams are not thinking, and all that good stuff. We haven't mentioned a lot, Miles McBride. He has really shot it well this year. Um, Again, in the context of trades, he is inarguably the Knicks' best trade chip. They've got that Washington pick that's probably not going to convey as a first rounder. It's probably going to be 2 second rounders. And so Miles McBride, without a doubt, their best trade chip. They have they did not make him available in a real way in the summer before training camp when they were trying to figure out a move. They had said to people that he is absolutely an important part of what we're going to do, and that turned out to be true. I mean, shooting the ball really well. Mill, are you surprised at all by what you've seen from Miles McBride?
The 3-point shooting has definitely surprised me a little bit because of how much of an increase it has been there in that column. I'm It's incredible to see how much he has improved his shooting because when he came into this league his first few years, a lot of us referred to him as a guard that really couldn't shoot. You know, he was a great defensive guard. He loved to hustle. He loved to bring that defensive intensity, but his shot wasn't really there at all times, especially the 3-point shot. But he clearly worked on it, and look where it is now, 44% from the 3-point line. That's just amazing right there that he's been able to work on it that well. Maybe the best 3-point shooter on this team and one of the best 3-point shooters in the league right now. I mean, he's just on a hot streak. That stretch where Josh was out and he got the start and, he really got to shine. He was on a great stretch there. I know the Knicks were losing and it was hard to see the positives in that, but he was one of the positives, averaging over 10 points a game each night, and the 3-pointers, they were just on fire. I love to see that from him, that he can create his, not only shoot the 3-pointers behind the line, but he can also create his own shot. We were seeing a lot of that. He was so aggressive on the offensive end. You love to see that because we need more creators on this team. We need more people to be aggressive on the offensive end. I mentioned it before, but we can't just be relying on Brunson to always carry us. We need this offense to be diverse and to have other people involved. So I love the fact that McBride has been shooting the ball so well, that he's willing to attack the basket and just, show his ability to score the ball.
Yeah, it's been a not I don't want to say revelation because he's been trending that way for a while. But Mill, you mentioned early in his career what he was showing you on the floor and where the shot was, and it's been I want to say just taking myself out of the reporter role, just as a human being. It's been fun to watch him develop into from his rookie year into where he is now. It's just a credit to his work. And speaking of his work, we had a nice conversation with Juwan Staten, Juwan skills trainer for Miles McBride. We got into a lot of detail about his work with Miles. He works with several players, including Miles, New York-based trainer Juwan Staten. Here's the interview. Juwan Staten, Miles McBride, trainer with several other players. He's worked extensively with McBride over the past few seasons, both of them West Virginia guys. And Juwan, thanks for joining us first off. And second off, has anything surprised you about what you've seen Miles McBride able to do this year so far?
First, thanks for having me, Ian. Um, but I mean, to talk about Miles, no, not really. I mean, I've known him for a while. I've helped him. Behind the scenes. I know what his game is like. So for me, it's just, just seeing it all come together.
And he's taught me. I've talked to him a few times just about how your work with him, how it's helped him, and he's talked about many different aspects of his game. One thing we talked about was just landing consistently and being balanced on your jump shot, your 3-point shot, whatever it may be. Have you seen that improve over the years, and where do you see it at right now this season?
Yeah, I've definitely seen it improve over the years. Miles has always been a good shooter. In college, he was a good shooter from three. So now I think he's just getting more reps, getting game reps. But landing has always been a big part of it. That's one of the biggest areas that I've focused on. I'm not a shooting coach, and like I said, he's always been a good shooter. So I've always just tried to focus on the little things to maybe help out here and there. So maybe sticking the landing and holding the follow through. Those are kind of the things that I kind of focus on and making sure we're doing the same thing every single time.
Yeah, you see the shot, and it just seems like it's repeatable, and it's the same thing every time. And I think that Knick fans probably owe you a debt of gratitude for your work with Miles. Not saying that obviously he's the player, he put in the work. It's his talent that's shining through. But I know you've worked extensively with him. Can you just describe to us your guys' approach in the off season, and how it works?
Yeah. So in the off season, we try to work on a lot of things that obviously that he needs to get better at, things that he needs to continue to improve on as he continues to grow in his career. I think shooting is something that he's shown that he can do. He showed that the past few seasons. So we've been trying to just expand, work on more ball handling, body movement, being able to get your shot off in 2, 3 dribbles or quick situations. Just things that he's going to have to continue to do to continue to be a good player in the league.
And in general, I know that you do a lot of skills work. What is your approach with a client? Do you watch a lot of film and then apply what you see on film with them? Do you just want to get in the gym with them first and then work through what you see? How do you approach your work?
Well, I like to help the whole athlete, if that makes sense. I mean, I'm watching film a lot. I've pretty much watched maybe every minute of Deuce's career in the NBA, probably every game, every minute, just so I can pick up on his tendencies, pick up on his habits, try to catch some things maybe before they happen. Everybody goes through slumps, whether it's a shooting slump or just playing. So I'm always looking for little things that can kind of let me know what way he's trending. And then on the court, it's just about taking all that film over the season, getting key areas that I think he needs to improve in, and just hitting those areas. My approach is always to pick one or two things that we want to improve at over the season, and that's kind of how we go.
When we talked, I believe it was Miles's second year, and we were talking about his work ethic. You were describing it to me, and just how when he steps on the floor, it's all business, and he's focused on whatever specific part of the game you guys have decided to work on at the moment. Has that changed at all now that he's been a pro for a while? Has he, changed his approach to these workouts with you?
No, it hasn't changed at all, and I think that's the thing that's helping him um, continue to show how good he is. I mean, in the summer, we don't, like I said, like we spoke before. It's pretty much business approach. I mean, we get in there, we might watch some film, we talk about the things that he needs to do, we talk about the focus of the workout, and then we just get straight to it. It's always high intensity reps. We don't really go too long, so we like to keep the intensity up. Um, and we just go at it pretty consistently over the summer.
Juwan and your company, Heart to Guard, you work with players across the game, many different levels. When you talk about Miles, just for the Knick fans in the audience, what stands out to you about him that's allowed him to play at this level?
I think for Deuce, it's really been his intangibles early. Um, we saw that early in college. He was a guy that just affects the game in a lot of different ways, whether it's scoring, whether it's passing, just making the right play, being a hound on defense, helping rebound, just whatever's needed. And I think early that's the kind of things that he did that helped him get time on a loaded team. And then as he was able to get more time, he was able to show people that he was a good shooter. My philosophy always do what you can do to get on the court first. Once you get on the court, and you're able to get more time, the coach gets comfortable with you, then you can start showing more and more what you can do. So I think he's done an excellent job of that. Um, and just, starting with the intangibles, starting with the defense, shooting, and then as his role grows, just showing what he can do.
Right. And I remember what he said consistently going way back to his second year in the league, that he's not surprised by his own play. He's just said it's a matter of me getting an opportunity, because I know what I can do. That's going back to when he would have a great shooting night here and there earlier on in his career, and now you're seeing it more consistently now. What do you think is like untapped here with Miles, and where do you see areas where he can continue to grow?
Um, Obviously he's shooting the ball amazing right now. Um, and that's a big part of his game. But I think he's a better scorer than maybe people give him credit for. And I know that's kind of crazy saying because he's scoring the ball pretty well right now, but he can get hot. You know what I mean? And he can score a lot of points in a short period of time, but he can put them together pretty good. So I think that may be the most untapped part of his game. That and playmaking.
Well, Juwan Staten, New York-based trainer. I'm calling him the guard whisperer based on how I've seen Miles and his play over the years, and I know that you guys have worked hard together. And I'm sure Knick fans again appreciate the work that's been put in, and are looking forward to what's next, because Miles is playing at a very, very high level. Juwan, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your insight.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
That's great stuff from Juwan Staten, Heart to Guard skills trainer. You can find him on social media, Twitter at Juwan Staten3. Works with Miles McBride, several other clients. Juwan, great insight there. And now we go to another gentleman with great insight, Matt Spenley, our social media guru here at SNY, who also partners with us in the Talkback section. He's got some good questions from the audience. He's going to relay them to us. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing today?
Doing
Good,
great.
man.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Fantastic. All right, let's get right into it because the questions are going to get right into it. Mill, I'm going to start with you. Jay from Florida. It's getting right to the point. Is the honeymoon finished for new coach Mike Brown? So what are your thoughts on the coach?
Is the honeymoon finished? Wow. Okay. No, the
Harsh, I know.
honeymoon the honeymoon isn't finished. I think he's just getting started, honestly, because, I mentioned this earlier to Ian that in the first few months, or I mean the first few months especially, he was experimenting, he was trying out different lineups, and he was seeing what works for him. And I think now he's he's found a groove. He knows Josh should be in the starting lineup, and now that Josh is back and he's healthy again, I think the Knicks are going to go on another winning streak. We're going to see great winning basketball from them again.
Ian, I'll go to you about Coach.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know you guys were talking about him before, but what are your thoughts as we get to halfway point of the season? How he's done? What are your thoughts?
Look, I mean, the Knicks kind of build this as having somebody in the aftermath of the Tom Thibodeau firing who was a collaborator with the front office, who would use different lineups over the course of the regular season, so the players would be healthier going into the playoffs, and would be able to utilize that bigger rotation. I think Mike Brown, at least to my knowledge, has checked all those boxes. He's listened to people around him on different decisions, particularly that Josh Hart starting lineup decision. He's played many players in his rotations, especially while he's had some injuries that maybe you wouldn't have seen last year. But the honeymoon phase, I don't think there was a honeymoon phase, honestly, and that's not a slight at all to Mike Brown. It's just a situation he walked into. Tom Thibodeau taking the Knicks to their first Eastern Conference championship in 25 years. And when you take over a team that's in that space, particularly a team with this history that the Knicks have, there's going to be no honeymoon phase. It's going to be win and win now and win into June. And, that wasn't just media talk when I was talking about that. And when the hire was made and other media people covering the Knicks were saying that, that's a real thing, that expectation. And James Dolan voiced that in his WFAN interview, saying that we definitely need to make the finals and we should win the finals. So that tells you where the bar is from the owner. That's the bar that Mike Brown is dealing with.
Yeah, and you've talked about it the whole time, Ian, the entire season, and it will continue to be the case into the playoffs, through the playoffs. Mel, I'll come back to you because we lost you at the end there. From Ambitious Wisdom, coming into the halfway point of the season, what are some areas the Knicks should be focusing on to improve as we enter the second half?
I think defense definitely has to be up there. Defense has been my main concern since the start of the season, actually. We know this team can score the ball. Offensively, I'm not too worried about that between Brunson, Towns, and the talented core that we have. It's the defense that worries me at times, that we do have a few defensive liabilities on our team and some in the starting lineup as well. So I've always wondered, to me, if we're capable of winning a championship with the few defensive liabilities we have in the starting lineup between Towns and Brunson. And we've seen how it's impacted some games as well. Definitely Mikal and Bridges have to carry that load. Mikal and OG, have to carry that load right there for them. And I definitely think the pressure is on them to interject and defensively and be the anchors we need them to be, which can definitely carry a lot on them. And I think it worries me at times if they can handle that pressure to carry on all of that. And defensively, the entire team, I think, needs to step up. I know Towns has struggled at that, Brunson as well, but they both need to step up. And Towns, as a 7-footer, I need him to protect the basket more. I need him to be a presence in the paint. I would love to see him have more of an impact on the defensive end. Mitchell Robinson, we know, is a great person to have in the paint right there, and he's scary for other teams. But he's not our starter anymore. Towns is. So as a starting center, he needs to have that presence. He needs to have that image to help us defensively.
Ian, Mill teed us up perfectly for the next question from your guy Papa Left, talking about expectations, Mitch. So stick with me here. Is there any forward-thinking thought process about Mitchell Robinson and Deuce McBride that will influence the Knicks' decisions at this year's deadline? Or are the Knicks delaying those headaches to put all their chips in on this year's playoff run? Now, I know on the last episode, maybe before, we talked about the situation with Mitch and with Deuce and their contracts. So to Papa's question, though, to Papa Left's question about how it might impact this year's trade deadline, what do you think?
It's a great question, insightful question, because I'm sure Papa Left knows that with this Knick regime, if they don't extend you when you're eligible for an extension, often it has meant that they don't have a future plan for you here. Now, Mitchell Robinson, though, his history is a little different. He was extension eligible a few years back, and there were the Knicks and Robinson not close on extension. during the season, and then he ended up re-signing. So I kind of lean back on that history in terms of Mitchell Robinson specifically, but certainly I would think that you'd be naive to say that the Knicks don't have an eye on the offseason and what's potentially next for Mitchell Robinson at this trade deadline. And if there's a move there where you can somehow bolster your front court, and you put Mitchell Robinson in the deal, I don't. I think that would be on the table for New York, just because the idea is to win a championship this year. So if you feel you can upgrade, and you're sending out a player who you love, who's incredibly talented, but who you're not sure what the future is. You're not sure if he's going to re-sign in the summer. Just from a logical standpoint, I think that makes sense. But to answer the question, I have to think that there is some forward thinking there. It's a tricky balance in terms of needing to win this year, wanting to win this year, and looking at the future. But that's what front offices do, and I'm sure that Brock Aller, his group, have that in mind as they approach this February deadline.
Yeah, Ian, you mentioned the last time we talked about it too. The Knicks making decisions based on their willingness to potentially hand out that sort of contract extension. I know we brought up the OG trade with Emmanuel quickly. Mill, I'm curious for you when you think about Deuce and Mitch and moving forward and the balance of keeping those guys for a run versus extracting value if you're not going to re-sign them long term. I'm curious how you feel about that.
Yeah, I love those two players deeply. Honestly, they've become some fan favorites for me, and they've been on this team for a while now. But you do have to think of it. You kind of have to put yourself in a front office perspective. If you're not going to resign these players, if they're not going to resign, you definitely do need to think in terms of a business that should you get your money's worth? Should you try to move them and get something valuable like that? I don't want to move Deuce McBride. I think that I would love if they could re-sign him, and I know he's getting paid very, very small amount right now, but he should definitely get more money, and he earned his money's worth so far. I mean, with the way he's been playing and how he's improved on this team, but I would love to keep him on this team. He's a great backup guard, but we've seen great backup guards leave and in trades before. We lost quickly, who obviously went to the Raptors, and we might see something like that happen again because Deuce McBride is showing his potential to everyone in the league, and he definitely has that potential. But Robinson, that's been a split thought I've thought about for the last few seasons now. Is we've said the best ability is to be available. That's the best thing that you can do, and he's definitely been injured for the past few seasons now. At times, stretches he hasn't been available. There definitely a thought. There could be a thought of moving him. In the perspective of a fan, I've thought about it before. But again, when he's on the floor and he looks like himself, it's so hard to think of him not being on this team because the impact he brings. He's a defensive anchor when he's out there. One of the best offensive rebounders in general. It's hard to replace that kind of impact, that kind of presence out there. So it's definitely something to think about, but it's up to the front office.
Always wild to me how long Mitch has been on the team too. Like it's
Yeah.
hard to remember the Knicks before they had Mitch. Ian, I want to hit you on a couple trade deadline questions or just trade questions from fans as well. So we got Mike, a bunch of numbers. I think point of attack defense is the Knicks' biggest weakness that needs to be addressed. Do you think Pacom Dadier and the Wizards pick for Keon Ellis is plausible?
Well, I think Sacramento has been looking for draft capital there and any Ellis deal. But I just wonder if another team could beat that offer in terms of what they're sending out. Because that Nick pick, which is from the Wizards, is likely going to be 2 second-round picks. Right, 2 high second-round picks, but 2 seconds. And so I just wonder if another team can add their own late first and make a package that's bigger than what the Knicks could offer. Ellis is a talented player. I'm sure that he's got some fans within the Knicks organization, but I just wonder if that offer in particular would end up getting it done. The point about point of attack defense, though, is accurate. I mean, that's been hurting the Knicks. It was really hurting them when they had lost 5 of 6. And it's something that probably isn't going away without some kind of a trade.
we talked about it leading up to the deadline. Obviously, the Knicks and the assets they've already moved is going to limit some of what they can do at this deadline. All right, one more, Ian. Bit of a wild one, but we're going to throw it to you. 2 + 2 = 4. Math fan, I guess. Think of this as a check-in update follow-up question to a prior one. If the Knicks are a first or second round exit, could Jalen Brunson be moved in a deal for Giannis? Forget Leon. Is it possible that James Dolan would force the issue like he did when they moved on from Tom Thibodeau?
It is a man. That's a big question. My knee-jerk reaction is no. It's not possible because I don't even think James Dolan would be interested in moving Jalen Brunson. Why would he? Jalen Brunson has been the driving force behind turning this franchise around and taking it from a team where the fans were in the stands yelling, "Sell the team." There was, disarray off the court to where you have stability now and you're a contender. So I don't even think James Dolan in that scenario, losing the first round, losing the second round, if somebody's going to get traded, if somebody's going to get fired, if there's going to be big changes, I don't think it's within the realm of possibility that Jalen Brunson would get moved. No, I don't see it.
All right, so I'm just sticking by it. 2 + 2 = 4. Wild idea, but hey, we gave it to Ian. All right, that's all I got. I'll let you guys talk about what's coming up for the Knicks.
Appreciate you as always, Mr. Spenley. Mill, thank you so much for all your time. The Knicks, they have a couple more games out west. Kings, Warriors, then they've got the Suns, and then they've got the Mavs coming up here. So they come back home for those two. What trends are you looking at that either it's something you want to see continue or want to see dissipate here as these games come up?
Yeah, we talked about it since the beginning of the show. I'm curious to see if Karl-Anthony Towns finds his rhythm offensively. I want to see how he performs in the next few games, what it looks like there. If the coach continues to put him on the bench in the fourth quarter, that's interesting to see. I want to see what works. I want to see him find his role. I want to see him be a big part of this team. He is supposed to be the second option. So I really want to see how he is going to respond to, being benched in that fourth quarter. From a fan perspective, I thought it was the right decision. It ended up working out and we won the game, but I'm sure he's feeling some type of way about it and he wants to be out there. So I want to see how he's going to respond in these next few games, if we're going to see him dominate, if we're going to see him, take control like we haven't seen him do in a while. So I'm definitely going to be looking at Karl-Anthony Towns very closely. I'm also going to be looking at Deuce McBride. I know he got pushed back to the bench and he had a little bit of an off game after Josh came back. I mean, it's understandable. He had been on such a hot streak. So it's understandable to have an off night every once in a while, but definitely going to be looking at him as well to see if he can continue that hot shooting coming off of the bench now. Maybe being in that starting lineup gave him the confidence boost he needed to shoot that well and to attack the offense and be that aggressive. But I want to see him do it off the bench as well, because the bench has been a huge contribution for us this season between him and Jordan Clarkson, and Tyler Kolek at times, and Mitchell Robinson. Bench has been carrying us some nights, and I would love to see that continue and for them to be a unit that we can utilize in the future.
Mill, just a great perspective, and I really appreciate your insight, your time. That's going to do it for us on this edition of the Putback, but we will be back next week with another episode of the Putback, and we'll be here, SNY's YouTube page. We're going to be talking Knicks. We're going to be talking topics of the day. I'm sure we'll be talking some trade deadline stuff. So thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much.